Hey guys, Paul here, and this is another video update. There's been a lot of stuff going on. The story of the game is basically finished. A lot of the instant action scenarios have been finished. A lot of the Steam achievements have been added. So a lot of aspects are very close to completion. But recently what I've added was a pretty big overhaul of secondary weapons. And that's what I'm going to start with. So I'm going to try to start with less boring aspects. So, secondary weapons. So initially, secondary weapons came about because some of the ship models had areas that you could put a secondary weapon on. For example, here we have these turrets that come standard on this ship, and then we have this secondary weapon, which is this charge gun. Just demonstrate that again. Hold it down, you charge it, fires nice blast. It also pushes ships away. So this particular fighter is actually one of my favorite fighters, and I would play it pretty much all the time. It's actually one of the best fighters in the game. Its turrets, track really well, where you can shoot behind, in all these different directions, making it really a really good ship. But it got me thinking, why can't every ship in the game be so much fun? Why is it that this particular ship is the best, so to say, or maybe so unique? So that's how I got the idea to do an overhaul of secondary weapons. So this ship's secondary weapon pretty much stays the same, but a lot of the other ships' secondary weapons have been changed. Here's this fighter drone, and it used to have this missile launcher here. And the problem with missile launchers is that either they're too weak, Void Destroyers in RTS and a space sim, so balance is a bit challenging. Things can't be too strong, and they can't be too weak, but secondary weapons have this really great opportunity to basically only give them to the player, only give them to the pilot, or a player that plays like a pilot. So, they can be overpowered in a way. They can be difficult to use in a way that the AI might not be able to use them. So this particular fighter, instead of a missile launcher, which again was a little too weak, there was like no reason never not to use it. You would just hit the secondary fire key all the time. There was no strategy to it. But what's been changed is to make it a torpedo launcher, actually a bomb launcher. And by bomb, I mean that it doesn't have its own propulsion. And it's relatively slow. However, with this fast fighter, and because we have Newtonian physics, objects inherit the velocity of their parents. So actually, we can have these bomb runs, right? So this weapon becomes strategic because it's not self-guided. It's going to totally miss that ship over there. But if I do a bombing run, and it didn't recharge yet. Okay, let's try that again. So I'm going to do a bombing run here, and I'm going to shoot my weapon and get out of the way. There we go, right? So this can actually do a decent amount of damage for a little fighter drone, and you can use it against capital ships. Now this fighter drone actually becomes somewhat useful against capital ships, or at least not useless, and platforms and stations, so you can send it on bombing runs, things like that. So I think this is a really great fit and a really great secondary weapon. So like I was saying, the first ship I showed, that first fighter with that charge gun, I consider it one of the better fighters in the game, probably the best fighter. But there's other fighters. So the question becomes, why use this fighter? It's certainly unique. It has forward firing guns versus those turning turrets. So potentially, when firing straight on, it does more damage. than that other ship with the turret guns. But still, it's actually harder to use. So potentially players might just say, "Hey, I just want to use the more effective ship, the easier to use ship." So adding a secondary fire mode gives this opportunity to make this ship more unique, more interesting for the player. So let's do that. So what I added was this sort of crazy rapid fire, but not very accurate fire mode. Now far away, you might not hit all that well, or you might have you might hit some collateral targets, but up close, this is going to be very damaging to fighters, and even do a decent amount of damage to larger targets, which you're not going to really miss all that much. So yeah, it's a difficult weapon to use because it has that sort of inaccuracy to it, but it is a powerful weapon and a unique weapon. So I hope that's basically the spirit behind secondary weapons: something unique, something that's powerful, something that's hard to use, a reason for the player to switch from one ship to the other, and maybe decide to stay in that ship instead of going to another ship. And some of the weapons were kind of generic before, secondary weapons. For example, this missile variant of the fighter would have this MIRV launcher, and it would split once, and it would shoot, I believe, 7 missiles. Now, because I'm only giving this to the player, it can actually be overpowered, where it's going to split twice, and twice just because it's cool. It's cooler for it to split twice. There's the once and there's the twice. It has a lot more missiles, and these missiles also have the ability now to find their own targets, so it can be sort of a fire and forget weapon. All these ships in front of me are set as friendly, so they're not going to be targeted, so just take my word for it. So again, I took something generic that was in the game, and I tried to make it a lot more useful. I tried to make it a lot more unique, a lot more fun, a lot more strategic, and give a little bit more to the piloting aspect of the game, where if the player wants to fly a particular ship, there should be a good incentive, a good reward for doing it. So this is one of my favorite of the secondary weapons, the new ones. This ship, called the Arsonist, fires this sort of a plasma projectile, and it has this sort of a mounted plasma type weapon, but originally it was going to be a flamethrower, and the flamethrower aspect actually gave me some trouble in terms of visual. In terms of doing damage, it's really easy, sort of functions like a beam weapon, right? Damage over time, that's kind of what a flamethrower is. But in terms of the visual, particle effects would go through the ship, so it would look bad, because in real life, flames don't go through something, especially a solid spaceship, right? So I kind of put that aside. I gave it this plasma lance, but with this secondary weapon overhaul, I'm like, hey, let's try it again. Let's have a flamethrower in game, and now we have a flamethrower. So again, this weapon is going to be very powerful, and it's going to be hard to use, especially hard to use because of the Newtonian physics. Trying to shoot something with a slow-moving flame is actually kind of difficult. If you're flying, yeah, you're always going to miss that. You have to lead your targets to hit them. So again, a powerful weapon, hard to use, and unique. Everything we want in a secondary weapon. So actually what happens is there's a damage over time aspect where even after the flames are gone, the ship loses health and it gets destroyed. So I really like this for the obvious reasons, the visual. There's a lot of cool stuff going on behind the scenes. I had to change the code a little bit so that when a projectile, because it's actually shooting projectiles, not it's not a beam weapon, it's a projectile weapon behind the scenes in code. It doesn't really matter to you guys, but it's actually how I was able to get it to work visual wise. You know, it shoots this projectile, and each one of these projectiles is this little flame thing, and when it hits a target, it stops. That's how the flamethrower works in Void Destroyer behind the scenes. So it's pretty cool. I really liked it. And there was a few other issues that I had to solve. I'm going to turn on the physics debug. Projectiles, their hit detection is one single point. And for a flame weapon, that didn't work really well. Excuse me. So I added this sort of collision box around it. And you can see how many projectiles are being fired. There's actually about, I think, 100 a second of these guys that are being fired. And that's how the magic happens. So again, we have a really cool, unique secondary weapon. It's actually useful against capital ships for this smallish fighter. Hard to use, very powerful, really great fit. And another really cool aspect of the flamethrower is that because of its sort of that radius effect I showed you guys, that that the projectile is not this little point in space, that it's actually much better against mines. See, they're kind of like blowing up, not really aiming at them, but I'm hitting them pretty well, much more than with a bullet. So in those missions or those maps where you have mines, you know, consider jumping into the arsonist and using its secondary fire to get rid of mines. You know, as another way. Or if there's a bunch of little ships on your hull, you know, on the hull of the port drum or the hull of some other craft, you know, consider, you know, throwing down some fire on even your friendly ship, but just to get rid of your enemies all the much quicker. So unfortunately, not all the secondary weapons are as cool as others. For example, here in this missile corvette, you know, our primary is missiles, and our secondary is also missiles, but the difference is that they're a heavier variant of the first missiles. They take longer to recharge, they're slower, so there is a little bit of tactics, not as much as I would want, but not all the secondary weapons are as creative as flamethrower, unfortunately. But nonetheless, a lot of them are really cool, a lot of them unique. For example, this ship's secondary weapon shoots this sort of spinning mine. And, you know, other ships shoot mines, and there's mines in game. So how do we make it unique? Well, let's see. Well, we make the mine really smack about the hit ship. So these mines are slow. They do track their targets. They're slow. They should really be used at close range. They don't do a whole lot of damage. However, as far as disrupting an enemy ship, they will really do that, you know. So again, this is just one of those examples of secondary weapons that are designed to have this sort of unique aspect to them. I'm going to switch to that frigate over there to demonstrate its secondary, and its secondary is a heat-seeking mine. So if you saw these mines in game and you were like, oh man, I wish I had a mine like that, well, now you do, you know. So what I did was, for some ships, I actually altered the model. Like here, for example, I just quickly slapped this little bay here to shoot this mine out of it. You know, it doesn't look great, but you know, it's a ship made out of rock, so it doesn't have to necessarily look great. And at this point, I was sort of struggling to add these secondary weapons in. trying to think of unique things, eventually you kind of run out. Here's another example. This is the Beast, and it has this, cool rock shooting cannon, right? So this model, didn't really have a mine launcher, didn't have a other type weapon. So what do? How do we add a secondary? Well, in this case, we just enhance the primary and give it a triple shot. So again, shooting this projectile in game, it's fun because it has this cool knockback, but at the same time, you're not really flying, you're not really piloting. It's kind of sort of boring, but when you have the option to do this super triple shot, that makes the ship a lot more interesting. I hope to you guys. And a similar thing goes with this ship. Again, it has this slow firing projectile that pushes enemy ships away. And really, the model, again, didn't really have room for adding a secondary. And I didn't want to give it a triple shot like this ship has, because that's just, we can't have too many of the similar things. This ship would become boring. I always want to have unique things. So what I did was I slapped on some guns on it. And luckily, Void Destroyer's art style makes it okay to kind of slap parts together. It's not super glaring. And now what we have is this sort of rapid fire guns. Now, you can't see what I'm doing with my hands, but these guns have this sort of auto fire or full fire capability where I hit the secondary fire button and just keep firing until ammo runs out. So this ship, has this slow fire. To complement it, to give the player a reason to play it, for a kill shot, you can use this secondary fire mode, giving it a little bit more strategy. So this fire mode will push you back. The primary pushes your target back, pushes you back. This one doesn't. So I think there's some cool, unique aspect here. I think I really tried to sort of give you, the players, these sorts of unique things. So eventually, I started running out of ideas for secondary weapons, and I could have just, given a similar weapon to a similar ship. This ship also shoots this sort of plasma projectile. But, that's boring. We don't want the exactly same ship. It's sort of, you could sort of believe this to be a flamethrower, kind of sort of visually. But I couldn't really bring myself to add another flamethrower. But still, the flamethrower is so cool, I wanted a variant of it. So this ship's secondary shoots this sort of plasma bullet that explodes into flames, right? Just because you don't have enough flames. So this, again, is a little harder to use because this projectile is slow. And as far as a weapon that you want to attack a lot of ships with, it's nearly useless because you would really have to get lucky judging the distances when this thing is going to explode and do its flame thing. Like here, for example, I think it missed every single one of those ships. Okay, yeah, we got a few, right? But really, it's meant for you to actually aim it. And then we got something, right? But if we're even at a closer range, we will do the maximum amount of damage. So again, unique weapon, hard to use, powerful, that sort of thing. That's what I tried to accomplish. So again, I hope that this enhances the game aspect of piloting ships. Because Void Destroyer is a space sim and a real-time strategy game. If you want to maximize gameplay, if you want to just play the way to destroy the most enemies the fastest, you would probably go into tactical mode and select all of your ships and say, hey everybody, attack one particular target. You know, you would do that all the time, and chances are that that's the best way to play the game in terms of doing the most damage. You know, if everybody shoots at targets, that target is going to die very quickly. That target flies away and your entire fleet tries to chase it, well, you know, your enemies are going to slaughter you. But either way, um, there are better and worse ways, kind of sort of to play Void Destroyer. Well, now if you are an enthusiast of flying ships, or like the strategic elements of laying down mines, or doing these sort of kill shots or triple shots, or these sort of area effect weapons, if you enjoy that aspect, you know, now you have these new toys. If you're in the game, you're switching from ship to ship, and you happen to jump on this one, which happens to be really well lined up for this particular ability, you know, I hope that that sort of adds to the game where um, you see this opportunity, you press that secondary fire button, and you get this really cool impact, and you get this really cool sort of gameplay mechanic where it's dynamic, and you jump to another ship, and the cards aligned, um, and you know, everything worked out for the best there. So one last thing on secondary weapons is actually not really related to secondary weapons, but because Void Destroyer is moddable, you can do things like this. You can do crazy amounts of damage, right? So what I did there was I modded this projectile just by changing the value, and I told it, hey, now you're gonna shoot 200 of these flame things at bigger angles. So yeah, you know, very moddable game. Have fun with these for those that really enjoy modding. It actually made it harder to use and more likely to hurt yourself, but you know, you can certainly ignore my my conservative, I guess, weapon aspects, and go crazy at them. Actually, now that I look at it, I might just want to add this to the game, because this this looks like a lot of fun that not only I should be having, but maybe you guys as well. Yeah. In the last video, when I talked about the shipyard changes, a player suggested, maybe not a player, somebody who watched the video suggested, you know, why do I have to double click these so often? Why not have a repeat button? So there we go. You know, I added this repeat button. It's a really great suggestion from a player, and I use it all the time. It's kind of funny how this works out. But sometimes somebody suggests something, I toss it in, I use it all the time, and I love it. You know, so now you can hit this repeat. It actually cycles trying to find the next available. That's why you see this sort of shimmer over there. You can use this repeat to not have to micromanage your ship so much, your shipbuilding. You know, you can say, hey, I want to build these fighters or these frigates. I want to repeat, make sure when one dies, I want another one, that sort of thing. Another thing I want to talk about is this watched GUI here. If you have an important ship that you want to keep track of, you can click this watched GUI, and now you can watch its health both in ship mode and tactical mode. So here I'm watching this Korea G, for example. I see its health. Here I'm watching a base. I see how much crew, how much energy, food, and ore it has. You know, if it runs out, it's not good. And here you have a little way of tracking it. You can just turn it off, toggle it off, that sort of thing. And very quickly, I'm going to talk about this. This is the, you know, chances are final form of this ship control, this general control. You know, this has been redone, you know, with the help of a really, you know, cool, great artist, helping out a lot. Sort of this unified selected object GUI. You know, I can activate gates via it. I can also just double click it here to deactivate it, but I have these certain buttons for new players that don't know this. For ships, I can tell them to do not engage, that their posture, engage, search, and destroy. I have these commands here with tooltips to explain to the player what they do. Self-destruct button, health bar, and the artist suggested, why not have the targets, your selected target's target, and of course you can click it to select it. So a lot of, I think, functionality in here. You can select multiple ships just like before. You can clear orders, clear their targets, um, that sort of a thing. But I think this is much better than before. Pretty much in its final form, it fits the other, more or less fits the style of the other elements in the game. So yeah, a lot of GUI work. Formation screen has been also redone similar. The file formation, and also a tooltip pops up there. You can disband this particular formation. You can disband all the formations. This was there before. It just wasn't as nice looking, thanks to the artist. You also have the form up command, leave formation, select leader, etc. If you click V formation, you kind of see an icon that looks like it. So basically, the GUI is pretty much done, which is pretty amazing. It's taken so long, but incredibly long. It's been a crazy long process, but I don't really see too much that really needs to be done, both in ship mode and tactical mode. So I'm very happy about that. Like I said, I'm finalizing the game. We're finalizing with the artists, the musicians, my musician and sound guy. We're adding some more sounds. These sorts of aspects, the GUI, is very close to completion. All this stuff is kind of coming along together. So I believe the second to the last thing I want to talk about is command ship upgrades. So command ship upgrades have been overhauled to sort of finalize them. I've really tried to look at them in game, give the player a lot of these choices, a lot of these abilities. So I demonstrated secondary weapons, and that is for the aspect of the player piloting a ship, a fighter or a frigate. That's one aspect of the game. Another aspect of the game is the player commanding, piloting the command ship, your largest ship here. It turns slow, it has all these guns, like other capital ships. It's a very powerful ship. There's lots of different aspects to using it. You have to keep it safe, but you also have to take it into battle. And it has these upgrades, these abilities here. So this GUI has been redone again. Before, there was this list box where you would click and double click. You could also use the page up, page down before, just like now, to cycle them. And of course, keep in mind, you can always hit time dilation to slow things down, so you have time to either click this or page up, page down, whatever you want, right? So the other abilities are here. The charge abilities there. I added this progress bar, this red bar and green bar when it's active as a countdown. But some new abilities have been added. One of my favorite is the tractor beam. I'm just gonna activate it now. As you can see, this ship is being pulled towards me, and I stopped it and actually stopped the tractor beam there. It's on a low cooldown, so you can actually use this quite a lot. So you can use it. The really cool thing about the tractor beam is you can use it in so many different ways. This was a friendly ship, so I kind of ruined somebody's day, I guess. One of my fleets. But if this was an enemy ship, I could lure it closer to my ships to get them to be able to fire on it. I could lure it closer to then capture it via the command ability. Or I could use the tractor beam to disable its line of sight. When you're moving this rapidly towards this location, you have a much harder time lining up your guns. So it has all these abilities, right? The other thing could also be used on cargo pods to drag them close for the command ship for upgrades. So you don't have to wait there, for the slow cargo pod to show up. That was the original intention of it. But the other thing is also that now gonna sacrifice my friend here, unfortunately. Now you have the ability via a command ship upgrade to do this sort of a thing called the debris eater. So you can tractor in debris, and when the command ship collides with the debris, it has the ability to actually consume the debris, provided it's small enough. Looks like this one might not be small enough, so I might have to tweak the value here. There we go. And what that does, what debris eating does, is it gives you more ore, sort of converts some of this to ore, but also converts some of this to health. So for that player that likes being in the command ship, likes that playstyle of the command ship, you can heal yourself if you're active as the pilot of the command ship. You can grab some ore. You can use all these abilities, things like that. So some of them have been enhanced or changed. For example, the radiation cloud ability used to stick with the command ship. That made it kind of useless because the command ship would be in it and would get damaged by the radiation cloud. But now it doesn't. Now it sticks in that spot. So you can use the radiation cloud, combine it with the withdraw ability, which thrusts you back, or you could use the tractor beam to drag an enemy ship into your radiation cloud. So a lot of these abilities have been designed with the idea of synergy. Use this ability to combine it with this other ability, things like that. Like for example, missile mines. You shoot these missiles, and when enemy ships come by, they will attack the enemy ship. You can do this. Then you can withdraw to cover a bigger area while they're shooting, or you can use the tractor beam to pull your enemy in. That sort of thing. So here I'm in a little bit later part of the game. Actually, let me just kind of quiet the sound a little bit here. That should be better. So I'm in the later part of the game with some other abilities, and one of them is called Azu's Gambit. Actually, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but one of the players at Steam suggested this ability. What it does is actually it draws fire away from your friendly ships and onto the command ship. So you have some strategic depth here. Where this ability is pretty powerful, but also has a drawback. Now your fleet is getting less damage, but your command ship is taking more damage. Another ability is this repair ability, and what happens is the command ship is going to be rapidly repairing. However, you lose any sort of maneuvering, and if you take damage, it actually multiplies your damage. So you can quickly repair, but you should really try to use it outside of combat, or try to use it when you're retreating, probably with that withdraw ability. And your engines are disabled, your maneuvering is disabled, but you rapidly heal. And again, for a pilot that likes being in a command ship, that's their main, or one of their main forms of enjoying the game, playing the game as a command ship pilot. I think this is going to add a lot to that, And of course, Void Destroyer is all these different games. It's a space sim, it's a real-time strategy, it's sort of this command capital ship type piloting game. But you can play it as all three. That's how I play it. But in case you are leaning towards one aspect over the other, I really tried to make it so each aspect is strong enough on its own or close to it, because sometimes you have a hybrid game and then you go like, well, yeah, hybrid game, it has three, two or whatever, at least two different aspects, but individually they're weak. I didn't really want that for Void Destroyer. I wanted each aspect to stand on its own, and I think, I hope that I'm close to that. That sort of thing where they all work with each other. Here I'm in tactical mode, I have time dilation on. I can issue orders and then switch to a fighter or switch to the command ship to pilot it while knowing that my other craft are doing what I want them to do. And speaking of orders, if you look, this ship is attacking these guys, and then these guys, and then these guys. This ship actually, one of these ships, let's see which one, this guy is actually a queue target, so that's another thing. I'm going to clear all these targets, clear all these orders. Via the shift button, you can queue up targets now. So I'm telling these guys, okay, attack this ship first, this ship, and this ship. This was something I've wanted to add for a while, but what somebody on the Steam forums, a player on the Steam forums suggested is this control selection type of a thing, you know, where you select a bunch of ships and you control, hold down the left mouse button and say, hey, I want to attack these guys. And this works really well to, again, you know, you go into tactical mode, you throw some orders around, you go back to ship mode, use a secondary weapon, you know, a powerful weapon, flamethrower, whatever, crazy plasma blob thing, call that a thing that spews flames. Go back to ship mode, you know, so you have all these different aspects. At the same time, you know, this GUI will show you your important ship's health, the Mark 13 here, and your this enemy sort of health. You can keep track of it. So yeah, that's it, I think, for this update. I think I kind of went through all these things. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much or bore you guys. Yeah, this might be the last update before the release on Steam. There's just kind of running out of things to add in terms of where I want to draw the line, in terms of having time to play test the game, try to nail some of these other issues or crash bugs or just, you know, just awful things that a crash bug is, you know, try to really nail those before release. I have to play the game, I have to stop coding it and play it. Even adding some of these things causes bugs, causes issues. Even a secondary weapon might cause a crash bug, you know, which one of them actually did, that a player was really kind enough to show me a save file for it. So again, you know, this is probably the last update. I'm very excited about that. Thank you to all you guys, you know, for your support via Kickstarter. All these things would just be incredibly difficult, probably almost impossible for me to afford on my own. All this art from these great artists and music, sound effects from my musician and sound artist. Thank you to, you know, those who purchased on early access via Steam. You guys have really, you know, helped with these ideas, these suggestions, play testing, sending bugs my way, which, you know, are just the most awful things. I hate crash bugs, but you guys having such a, you know, a large player base really helped in that aspect. You know, you guys do all these things that I don't do, or you come across these issues that I don't come across. You know, I might be spending a lot of my time in these custom maps where I test secondary weapons. You know, I'm working on this, I test this, but you guys are playing the game. You know, playing the game as it's meant, so you might see these issues in actual gameplay where I'm just making sure that these bullets, you know, come out at the right angles and at the right frequency. So again, thank you very much. Rambling again. Thank you very much for all your support. Kickstarter, Steam guys, you know, early access guys. It's not an easy thing to buy a game early, but you guys did it. It's not an easy thing to back a project on Kickstarter, give your money to somebody or some stranger on the internet, but you guys did it. So truly grateful for that. Thank you as always. I hope to release a really great product and go from there. Again, if you guys have any suggestions or ideas or criticism or feedback, let me know. There's still some ideas floating around that I have to put in before release or potentially after release. Go from there and hopefully have a nice future in space sim history. Thanks again, guys.